The 27th Busan International Film Festival will come to a close tonight. This is after 10 days of packed screenings and events that attracted huge crowds of fans, pre-pandemic style, if you can believe it. With hundreds of films screened for novice festival goers, there was so much to process. This morning, we're joined by academics specializing in Korean cinema, professor at Korea Sungsil Cyber University, Jason Bechervaise. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning.
Were you able to hit up Busan for this year's festivities?
Yeah, I was there for a few days actually. I went from Wednesday, which was the opening day, last Wednesday, and then I returned. What was it, on Monday? So yeah, I was there for the opening weekend, which is when you have all the the big events, the gatherings, the parties, and so on and so forth. So it was nice to be back in back in Busan, where it was a return to normality in a sense, being in a room full of people, probably not the best environment for COVID, but I guess that's where we are right now, and rather enjoy the festival in its full glory rather than just stuck in a hotel room or at home even watching the films on a laptop. So it was good to watch films in the cinema with a crowd. It was good to be with filmmakers and people from the industry discussing films. And it felt very much like a return to normalcy. And lots of international guests there, lots of people from the local film industry. It was reminiscent of kind of pre-pandemic times.
And it was something desperately needed by perhaps the film industry. As you've alluded to, I mean, those opening nights, it's a festivity and a networking site for all those who are involved, not just the actors. They get all the spotlight, the directors too. But it's about how these films are produced and made, and who talks to whom in Busan off the record gets all of the buzz. I might ask you a few questions about that if you spotted any interesting conversations. But here's the thing about BIFF, or any film festival for that matter. If you're a first-time visitor, it's overwhelming to see hundreds of titles. They promise you that it's a trustworthy set of curators doing their jobs, but where to start, which movies to begin with is tough. And I tell my listeners repeatedly, opening film and closing film might be your safest bet. I mean, they must choose these for a reason. So can you tell us a little bit about Scent of Wind, which was the big opener for the 27th BIFF this year, and the big closer tonight, A Man?
Yeah, I'll confess I've not seen those films. I was so fixated on the Korean films. My area of research, or my specialty, is Korean cinema. So I was eager to explore many of the Korean films. So I'll talk a bit about those in a second. The opening film, Scent of a Wind, an Iranian film, interesting not to open with a Korean film, by Heidi Mohage. He has history with the festival. Quite often, festivals, they form these kind of relationships, these connections, and they can invite several films from a filmmaker, and that was the case for this one. His second film premiered in the New Current section, which is it's a kind of signature section festival focusing on either first time or sophomore features, first time filmmakers. And the film is very slow paced, I gather, but very good. Follows a disabled man and his paralyzed son. So I hope to catch it at some point. But yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch the film. And the closing film, A Man by Ishikawa Kei. He made a film called Traces of Sin back in 2016. And so his new film is an adaptation of a novel, and follows 2018 novel, and follows a divorcee who returns to hometown with a son and falls in love and sparks off a series of rather strange events, I gather. So the closing film can sometimes be a bit of a curse. It's not always the case. So hopefully when I say that, it's since they're either not good or they don't go anywhere. But on the other hand, the ones that do quite well after Premier in Busan have done very well. So we'll have to wait and see where that film lands. So curious to see that.
Hey Jason, thank you so much for the thorough answer, despite not seeing the movie yet. Let's move on to your forte. I mean, this is the prime reason why you were down in Busan after all. Was there a particular Korean movie that caught your attention, and more importantly, any new Korean directors and actors who showed great potential? When I first met Hanyeri at BIF a few years back, she was not as half as big as she is today, and we all knew she would shoot straight to the top. But that was an interesting time to interview someone like that who's a rising prospective superstar.
Yeah, Hanyeri's lovely. I met her once actually in Toronto.
Mm.
She was in Hemu,
Mm.
and yeah, she's gone from strength to strength, and yeah, she's very popular among those in the industry. Bong Joon-ho has really likes her, and yeah, you can see why she's just such a talent. What film was she in Busan for when you were there?
It was the big opener. It was something dream. Was it? Let me look it up.
Ah, yes, 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 yes. Sweet Dream.
I
Yeah,
think it
yeah.
was Sweet Dream, but I want to look for the Korean title as you perhaps introduce us. Because
Yeah, it's a good film, very good film. Yeah, yeah. So in terms of the
Mm,
Korean films this year, my favorite one was probably Next Sohee, which actually premiered in Cannes earlier on this year. This was my first film of Busan at 2022. And I absolutely loved it. It's quite an intense film. It's
mm,
directed by July Jung. She
mm,
made A Girl at My Door,
mm,
starring Bae Doona. And now Bae Doona stars in both films actually. July Jung's first film and also
mm,
her new film Next Sohee. And yeah, basically it follows this young woman. It's kind of split into two halves, and we follow it from her perspective. For the first half of the film, she works at a call center, and then something quite
mm,
bad happens to her. She
mm,
dies, and so a detective played by Bae Doona, she then looks into her case, and she kind of discovers kind of the really bad working conditions that
mm,
she and others have faced, and she kind of looks into it, and she realizes that
mm,
this isn't an isolated incident. It's
mm,
actually related to various other organizations,
mm,
and yeah, no, it's absolutely fantastic.
mm,
It's so beautifully shot,
mm,
performed. And so I highly recommend that. I
mm,
think it's for me, there are two terrific films that I've really liked this year. Decision to Leave, directed by Park Chang-wook,
mm,
and this film as well,
mm,
Next Sohee. And then I guess looking at the new currents, which is the section I just mentioned. So that when you go to Busan, certainly when I go to Busan, the thing I look out for are the kind of discoveries, and they tend to appear in one or two strands of the program. So either in New Currents, which is, like I said, it's focused on filmmakers' first or second films. And then there's the vision section. So the New
mm,
Current section had two Korean films plus a co-production called Ajuma. I wasn't able to see the co-production, which I heard was very good, but I did see the two Korean films. First of which was that I saw was Hail to Hell, a really interesting
mm.
film and an interesting title actually, Jiok Manse. So
Uh,
hell is a word that you sometimes hear or in Korean films or content. Squid Game, for example, has I think one episode called Hell, and yeah, and of course the title is Hellbound or Jiok, and so. Yeah, no, this film deals with cults and religion,
oh,
and it also runaways, and yeah, it's a very gritty film. I really liked it. It's directed by Im Ho Jong.
mm,
It's a Korean Academy of Film Arts feature. So
mm,
this is the famous film school in Korea.
mm,
Famous alumni includes Bong Joon-ho, Chae Dong-un, Im Sang-soo,
right.
and the other New Currents film was Wild Rumor, which is about this man who basically redesigns houses, like the interior,
Mm,
and he lodges at this house. And one day he discovers that his car has a dent in it in the roof, and he realizes someone's kind of escaped from a building
mm,
and jumped onto his van,
okay.
and so he basically tries to track the person down,
Right.
and it's a really quite tonally it's really interesting. It's a lot full of humor, lots of dark comedy. From what I gather, it kind of worked quite well in Busan in terms of the audience responses, and
Mm,
critics seem to like it. So that might be one that travels.
mm, mm,
There's also an animation called Motherland that was quite
mm,
interesting, stop motion animation.
mm.
I guess the film that won a number of awards, Wild Rumor won quite a few, I think three, because there are a number of awards that are handed
Right,
out in
right.
Busan. Greenhouse as well won three awards, including the CGV award. Now that's significant because what that means is it basically gets distribution. It guarantees
That's
distribution, and
important.
CGV
Yeah.
is the biggest exhibitor in Korea. So that will mean audiences will be able to see it. Again, it's a Korean Academy of Film Arts
Mm.
movie. It deals with mental health and dementia, and
Oh.
to be honest with you, it's quite twisted. And I don't want to give much away because I'll end up revealing spoilers. I can see some audiences really not liking this film because it's
Mm,
really dour
mm,
and deals with some quite serious
mm,
issues.
mm,
And yeah, follows a carer essentially. She goes into a home and looks after an elderly couple, and
mm.
something really bad happens.
I think you've given away enough.
Yeah, funny enough, but it does get super twisted. I can imagine some people really loathing this movie, but I quite liked it.
It's not for
So yeah, a whole
everybody.
bunch of films I quite like down in Busan, and I'm still exploring them actually. I'm seeing a few here in Seoul at home,
And in
and
the
so yeah.
weeks afterward, the buzz will continue. And the great thing about screening at Busan is that because it's such a local film festival, it does get a little bit more of a push, I suppose. Winning awards like the CGV award might be a good one for a greenhouse. Jiyoungman sounds absolutely intriguing. I'm already glued in just by the title. I think it's so clever.
I know it's a great title, isn't it? It kind of really works in Korean. Hail to Hell is yeah,
Yeah. A loose translation. To answer your earlier question, the Haneri opening film a few years ago at Busan was Chunmong, A Quiet Dream, not a
A Quiet
sweet
Dream. I
dream.
should speak of Quiet Dream. Yeah, yeah.
It was years ago, so I'm going to move quickly along because I have so many questions for you, but I think I'm going to pick and choose because this one is perhaps the most important. There were many high profile guests at Busan, and that's kind of one thing to tout for these film festival. Who were the high profile directors, celebrities that were here? Do you think maybe Tony Leung being here, well, the Avatar's lead producer, John Landau, being here, do you think that's a testament to Korean films maybe having a bigger voice in the global contents market?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Busan has attracted a number of celebrities over the
Sure.
years. You know, Quentin Tarantino
Mm,
was there, you know, with that with Bong Joon-ho. I forget which year it was. Was it 2013?
mm,
But yeah, it's always attracted talent. There's never been an issue, I think,
mm,
getting the big names to come to Busan. It's seen as like the most significant, certainly one of the most prestigious film festivals in Asia.
mm,
It's kind of dubbed the Cannes of Asia for a reason. It has this kind of idyllic setting on Haeundae Beach,
mm,
and there are a lot of celebrities in town. That being said, clearly Korean cinema keeps kind of elevating itself. And with Parasite winning the Best Picture Oscar in 2020, and then of course Squid Game last year. So it was interesting being in Busan last year because I was there, but it was a really kind of almost subdued affair
mm,
because of the coronavirus pandemic and the
mm,
new restrictions that have been announced, and so there
mm,
was a curfew, and you couldn't really socialize, and there
mm,
wasn't really many people in town.
mm,
But it was the kind of the Squid Game kind of period where everyone's talking about this show, and I was being hounded by journalists left, right, and center asking me about Squid Game and what's it about, significance of it, and so on and so forth. And so I feel like the industry wasn't really able to capitalize on the success of Squid Game and Parasite in a way that they perhaps could
ah,
have done had the coronavirus not happened. But we're here yeah, in a world where we can't control things, and COVID happens, and so this year was the first year where you can kind of
mm,
have everyone back in town, and lots of international talent was certainly there. We got Tony Leung. Now he's interesting because I mean, Busan is kind of it's a film festival that is certainly focused on Korean cinema, and the success of it has correlated with the rise of the Korean film industry. But it's also an Asian film festival.
Mm,
So
mm,
this year it opened with an Iranian film, closed with a Japanese film, and we have a big Hong Kong celebrity in Busan.
mm,
And Korean films have, over the years, filmmakers rather, been influenced by certainly Hollywood directors and Hollywood films. And that's been
mm,
true since the early
mm,
20th century.
mm.
And it's also true that Hong Kong films have been influential as well. So
Mm.
Tony Leung being in town is very much emblematic of that.
Jason, I'm so sorry to cut our conversation short. It's been a pleasure. We'll speak to you again soon. Have a wonderful weekend.
Okay, take care. Bye bye.
If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.